Hi everyone, welcome to our latest video. Today we're doing a economy test on the MG ZS EV here in Australia, and we're going to see just how far we can get on a full charge. Stay with us. Hi everyone, welcome to Electric Car Australia, and today's a video on an economy drive. So we're going to put our MG ZS EV in economy mode, and we're not going to turn the aircon on. We're going to drive it as easy as possible and see just how many kilometres we can get out of a full charge. Now this is probably a test that isn't really that relevant, it's more out of interest. So I'm going to do it today just as a once-off, but realistically I've always believed that we should be using EVs the same as we would normally use our petrol, diesel, ICE cars. So we shouldn't need to be babying them along and turning off air cons and all that sort of stuff. The cars need to be able to perform as they normally do in normal life. So we'll be hoping for dry roads, minimal headwinds, and not too hot. Because I have planned to not use the aircon at all if possible. We're going to use eco mode all the way. We're going to drive it around 90 kilometres an hour. We're going to use max Regen, and we won't be using the adaptive cruise control because, as most of you probably know, unfortunately the adaptive cruise control in the MG ZS EV doesn't use the KERS or Regen braking. When it slows down, it uses the mechanical brake. So we're not going to use MG Pilot or the Cruise because we want that max Regen. We won't be overtaking any vehicles. We've got minimal weight, so we've took the child seats out, etc. If you've seen our most recent video, we've done a video on installing child seats and child safety. I'll include a link to that up above. But we've taken all those out to make it nice and light, and we're hoping for dry roads. Now look, it is forecast to be 32 degrees today, so it's going to be a little bit toasty driving without aircon, but we'll see how we go. Yeah, as I mentioned, we're just going to fly by the seat of our pants. I'll give you guys updates through the trip, and then at the end of the video, once we're home, we'll actually do a sort of roundup summary video. So just to show you the starting points. So there we go, that's our current consumption, and you may not be able to see that. Let's see if we can get in. So there we go, that's our current consumption. So we're at 16.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres, and that's over a 2,200 kilometre average. So what we'll do is we'll reset it down there to 000, and we'll see what we get today. So we'll compare that to the average that we just mentioned. Here's our stats to start with. So we're fully charged. We charged overnight on the 10 amp granny lead. So we've got 451 volts. Now that's slightly under, the MG should have 455 fully charged. We've got our tyres pumped up to the recommended 34 pounds per square inch, I think it is. Yep, 34 pounds or 230 kPa. So let's get on the road and see how we go, and hopefully I can survive without the aircon. Well, here we are, 1 hour into our trip. We've done 72.4 kilometres. We're heading south down the M1 from Brisbane towards the Gold Coast, and we'll be going past the Gold Coast. We've stopped at Palm Beach for a quick bathroom stop and a snack, so that won't affect our range too much because we'll obviously shut the car down, and we're just basically straight off the motorway, straight back on. Interesting trip so far. We've had a fair bit of roadworks, so quite a slowish trip, which will help the economy, and we've also only been sitting on a maximum of 90 kilometres an hour. As mentioned, it's summer, 31 degrees here, so nice and warm, quite humid, and no aircon in the car, no cruise control or anything like that. We're really trying to limit the power consumption to see how far we can go on this eco test and see what sort of mileage we can get out of a full charge in the MG ZS EV. The only thing we do have on is radio. I can't drive without radio, so that would be a very minimal draw on the battery. So let's check out some of the figures so far. Okay, so there's some of our numbers. Now these are quite impressive. As I mentioned, we've done 72 kilometres so far, been travelling for a bit over an hour. Average speed, so that roadworks has obviously impacted that a bit with 64 kilometres, but look at that consumption. We're down to 11.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. Now that in normal times is probably not realistic. As I mentioned, we've got no load in the vehicle except me and about 20 kilos for some charge leads, some water and a bit of food. We're driving in eco mode, we're not overtaking, etc, etc. However, that is impressive to just get an idea of just what the MG is capable if you really take it easy. You'll notice on the power percentage screen here, primarily we've been under the 20 there, so I've been trying to keep that under the 20 up to a maximum of 40. So I don't think on the trip we've had to go over 40% on the power meter there. So primarily below 20, so that gives you a bit of an idea of what we're doing. And look, we've only lost one or two bars, and we'll, in this summary at the end of the video, we'll go into more depth what those bars mean. But as you can see there, we've got max regen, so that's set at 3, no cruise control. And the GOM is telling us we've got 224 kilometres more range left at that consumption. So if we add that to the 72, that's quite impressive. We're just under the 300 kilometres out of a charge. Now I am expecting that to go down a little bit, but if we can end up around the 270, 280, that'll be pretty impressive. Okay guys, well I did mention we're at Palm Beach at the Gold Coast for a bathroom break, so I couldn't come down here and not show you guys the beautiful day it is. So there we go, Palm Beach, Gold Coast in Australia. Look at that. That is beautiful. So I'm taking one for the team here, guys. I could be sitting on the beach here, kicking back, having a snooze, but instead I'm making a video for you guys on the MG ZS EV. So yeah, another day maybe. Actually, rephrase that. Another day, definitely. Rightio, I'm gonna grab a snack and a drink and we'll be back on the road. Well, with this beautiful sea breeze compared to the sweaty, stinky humidity inside the car with no aircon, I had to stay a little bit longer. Well, welcome back everyone. We've had a bit of a change of plans. I was going to head just straight down sort of the motorway towards Coffs Harbour. Now we wouldn't have got as far as Coffs Harbour, but it was just somewhere we were sort of aiming for to see how far we could go and then charge up sort of down there. Given the day is so hot though in the car, and I really don't want to turn the aircon on because I want to really test this eco range and just see how far we can go. I've decided to drop off in Byron Bay. So look, there's another Tesla. On the entire trip down I only seen 3 Teslas, and in the last 5 minutes I've seen 6. Obviously Byron Bay is a beautiful part of Australia, and you would have just seen on the video there a couple of rapid chargers at the farm, which is a tourist attraction at Byron Bay. I was going to stop there, but as you can see it was quite busy, so I've decided to go into town and we'll see if we can get a shady spot to stop at in town and just have a little break. Now look, the reason I've decided to stop at Byron Bay is it's roughly halfway. So the GOM's telling us we've got another 158 kilometres of range left. We've done 145 kilometres so far, and the consumption's gone up slightly. So we were down around the 11.7, we're up to 12.4 now. And that's because there's a few little mountain ranges, as you would have seen on the video, so the consumption's gone up a little bit with those. So look, what we'll do, we'll just poke steadily into Byron Bay. As I said, a beautiful part of the world, so we'll find a shady spot. I'll have a break. I'm not going to charge the car because that would be cheating, and that's not what we're doing today. We're doing a eco test to see how far we can go on a full charge. So yeah, we'll use Byron Bay as our halfway point, and we'll have a break here, we'll turn around and we'll head back to Brisbane, and we should get all the way back home on a single charge, which will be just under 300 kilometres in total. If not, there's lots of charging spots up towards my place closer to Brisbane. So we'll check back in when we find a shady spot. Well, here we are on the outskirts of Byron, just about a kilometre off the motorway, and as you've seen by the video, the traffic was chaos in heading into Byron. I haven't been here for a number of years and I didn't realise how busy it was now. So not the ideal thing when you're doing an eco range test. So I thought I'll miss this. We went around to one of the local little supermarkets on the outskirts of town. That was also busy and no shady parks. So hence we turned around heading back out of town, and we found this great little church just off the main road coming in. Heaps of nice shady trees. Church of St Columba, Ewingdale. So beautiful little spot. So I'll have a break here and then we'll hit the road back to Brisbane, and we'll see if we can get back with our single charge. Now I know I've been banging on about the heat, but it is really hot today, guys. I think we're at 32 now. And as you know, the ZS EV has, excuse the bird droppings there, car needs a wash. The ZS EV has a glass sunroof, which looks great, but in the Queensland summer, that is very, very hot. So we've got inside the fabric blind, but when you're sitting here, that is pretty much over your head and you can really feel that radiant heat coming in. So even though the sunroof is tinted from the factory and it has that fabric shade. So as I mentioned, I'm trying not to have the windows down too much. Because if we have them down too much, that'll affect our range. So I've just got them down a little bit, but yeah, I'm certainly going through the water. So we'll check back in shortly with some of our stats, and then we'll hit the road. Well, there we go. There's our stats. We've been travelling for around 2.5 hours. As I mentioned, don't take too much notice of that because we had some road works and we're stuck in gridlock traffic, etc. But that's how long we've been on the road. We've travelled 153.8 kilometres. So that's not too bad. And you'll notice in the bottom left-hand corner there is telling us we've got 143 kilometres range left. Or if I push the battery button here, that also shows us that amount of range. So there we go, I'll push it. There we go, 143 kilometres. So that'll be pushing it very tight to get back home on a full charge. If we can't, that's fine because we've got lots of fast chargers on the way. And you'll notice that consumption there, 12.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. Now I'm really impressed with that. Now that's an average. But that is a lot better than I thought it would be. So average kilometres or speed is 60, so again that's quite low. So we'll average it out by the time we get home and we'll just see what that is. Down on the battery meter you'll see it's showing half the number of bars left, which equates to we've got about 143 kilometres left. And keep in mind the GOM's calculating that on our current consumption. So that's calculated at 12.3. If I turned the aircon on the way home and drove at the speed limit, that consumption would go up and the range available or the range left would go down. So that's it. I'm going to have a break as I mentioned, and we'll check back in when we hit the road. Well, we're back on the road on our way back to Brisbane, and interestingly the consumption hasn't gone up. I thought we might have had a bit of a headwind on one way, so I was expecting it to either go up or down, but we're currently still sitting on 12.6 kilowatt hours per 100 k's, so that's great. Navigation's telling us we've got 123 kilometres to go to get back home. And the GOM's currently telling us we've got 130 kilometres of range left. So that'll be very interesting if we get all the way. But yeah, overall, day's been going well. Total of 173 kilometres so far. So that's great. We'll check back in shortly. Guys, we've made it back to just near home, just over 300 k's, so really impressed with that. And when we get home we'll do a bit more of a summary and overview of that. But I've just ducked into our local supermarket because my wife needs the car in about an hour, and as you've seen on the videos there, we've got the battery right down pretty low, and it's even though we're on the 7 kilowatt charger down here, we're still only just putting in about 17 amps. That's just to protect the battery when it's in such a low state of charge. So just a couple of interesting things while we're down here. I popped the bonnet, and interestingly the coolant here, so this is the coolant that cools the battery. Now look at that, 19 degrees. So you can feel that, that is actually cold. So I'm assuming maybe that uses the AC to cool that, not sure. This is the charger, so it's starting to warm up, 38 there nearly. And this is the charger coolant. So as you can see, that's starting to run around there now. But yeah, very interesting to see that coolant there, which is the battery coolant, is quite cool. Because again, I know I've been banging on about it, but this heat, so we look at that on the white, so that's 36 on the white. We come up to the sunroof, 45. And that radiant heat is what's radiating through into the inside cab. And I zapped the dash mat, or the dashboard as well, so we've got a black dash mat on that. 60 degrees it was before I put that sunshade up. So yeah, it's been a warm trip today. Hi everyone, here we are a couple of days after our eco range test. And the reason for that is I wanted to fully charge the car at home so we could get an idea of just how long it takes to charge and also the total energy we consumed on the trip. So look, we charged at home on the 10 amp granny charger that comes with the car as standard. So that's just plugged into a normal power point. And given the battery was as low as you would generally ever take it, this gives us a good idea of the absolute worst case scenario if you were charging your car from dead flat to full at home. So just a quick recap of the purpose of the video. We done an eco range test travelling from Brisbane to Byron Bay and return. The idea was we wanted to travel as far as we could on a single charge. We had no weight in the car besides myself and a few snacks. We weren't using any of the accessories, air conditioning, etc., except for the radio, and for a very short time I used the navigation system. We had the tyres pumped up to the maximum recommended in the manual, which was 34 pounds per square inch and 230 kPa. The temperature on the day was 30 to 34 degrees. There was a slight side breeze, so we didn't have any sort of headwinds to speak of. We had dry roads all the way. The average speed we travelled over the 300 kilometres was 63 kilometres, but the maximum speed at any one time was 90 kilometres. Ensure that we got reasonable range. So the average consumption over the entire trip was 12.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. The lowest we got actually on the trip was 11.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. And that was in the first 64 kilometres, so that was the average in the first 64 kilometres. Now here in Brisbane, it's on the east coast of Australia, there's a lot of smallish mountain ranges around Brisbane, so I tried to plan this trip for as least amount of ranges, i.e. elevation changes, as possible. So I wanted flat roads so that we could get as far as we could. Doesn't matter whether I go north, west or south, we've got mountain ranges all around us here in Brisbane. So there was a couple of smallish ranges on the way to Byron Bay. The elevation change, so the maximum we had was 65 metres, and then there was a couple of other changes there a little bit lower than that. So there was a graphic in the video that showed you the elevation changes. So basically when we had some smallish mountains to go up over. So look, that 12.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres, that's what we achieved as an average. The WLTP range for this car works out at about 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. So WLTP stands for Worldwide Harmonised Light Vehicle Test Procedure. They utilise for electric cars. So yeah, in comparison, 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres. In a harmonised test, we got 12.9. But keep in mind, as I mentioned early on in the video, this is not the sort of kilometres or the range that you would normally get, the consumption, because it's unrealistic. I would normally have had the air conditioning on, we potentially would have normally had some more load in it, etc. But it gives you an idea of just what the car's capable of. So to get to the kilometres, so we got 303 kilometres out of a full charge. And again, going back to the WLTP for the car is 263. So we got about 40 kilometres more than on the WLTP. So I thought that was good. So we'll put a couple of graphics up that show the charging when we got home. So the total energy we used was 50.33 kilowatt hours. Now people will say, how can that be possible? Because the MG's only got a 44.5 kilowatt hour battery. Usable capacity of the battery's around 42.5. So how can you put 50 kilowatts into it? And the reason's simple, there's losses. So you've obviously got losses in the system. And also, because we did run the battery quite low, the MG would have done an equalisation type charge. So it puts some more energy into the battery to equalise all the cells. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but the car does manage this itself. And from time to time, if you don't charge on the 10 amp home charging, it will actually come up on the dash and tell you that you should do a slow equalisation charge to equalise all those cells. So because that is pretty much the main way that I charge the car, I've never seen that as yet. But if you were using a lot of rapid charges and not the 10 amp home lead, it would ask you to do that. So that's why we used a bit more energy. The total charging time on the 10 amp lead, again, you'll see this in the graphics, was 26.47 minutes. Now that may not be 100% accurate because I was continually going up to the shed checking and I was trying to catch it when it just went into sleep mode. But you'll see from the graphics there, at 48 kilowatts, we were still putting in 8.5 amps, and you'll see the time there. 49 kilowatt hours, we're still putting in 1.7 amps, so obviously that was pretty much full and it was just trickle charging that last little bit. And then at 50 kilowatt hours, it was down to zero and just sleeping. So yeah, 50 kilowatt hours we put in total, and it was 26.47 hours to charge non-stop. Now, a quick comparison on energy costs. So we paid our standard electricity cost, which is 20 cents a kilowatt for 100% renewable energy. So that cost us $10.06 to do that trip, paying grid electricity price. Now, just comparing against my other car, so I've got a diesel Volkswagen Passat. Now, the average fuel consumption for that car is 5.3 litres per 100 kilometres. Current diesel price in Brisbane, when we done the test, was $1.32. That means the Passat would have used 16 litres of diesel to do 303 kilometres. So that would have cost us $21.20. So it gives you a bit of an idea of the cost savings on your fuel, and that's paying the going rate for my grid electricity and the going rate for diesel. Now, I thought it might also be interesting to just compare that against the petrol model ZS. So this is again, the average fuel consumption figure quoted by MG for the ZE Essence. So this is the smallest, most economical petrol motor that comes with the ZS. So it's a 1 litre 3-cylinder engine, would you believe? The average consumption of that is 6.7 litres per 100 kilometres. So that means the ZS petrol would have used 20.3 litres to do 303 kilometres. Petrol price here where I live at the moment is, $1.46 a litre. So that would have cost $29.64 in petrol. The electric MG ZS EV, $10. The diesel Passat, $20. And the ZS petrol, $30. So that gives you a little bit of an idea if you were comparing the ZS against its brother, or it's actually 1/3 the cost. Yeah, very interesting. Keep in mind, of course, that is an eco range test in the electric, so the consumption could have been a little bit higher. Those numbers would be different if you used the WLTP number. So look, that's it guys. I hope you've found the video interesting. It did take a little bit longer than I thought to actually produce it and get it out. There was lots of screenshots in there, etc. So I'd really like to know your thoughts. If you could leave them in the comments. Do you like more produced sort of videos? Do you like the videos that have got more screenshots in them, more little titles, notes all the way through? Or you would prefer just the graphics and the talking? Because it'd be really handy to actually know what you guys like, so that I'm making videos that you guys really want to watch. So look, that's it. Thanks. The most important thing to support us is to subscribe to the channel. That would be fantastic. If you could like the video, if you found it enjoyable and informative, that would be great as well. Please share it with your friends. And the ultimate would be, if you can, please support us with a small PayPal donation. There's a link in the description of the video.
at the end. So if you just click the more info button if you're on a desktop, or the little down arrow if you're on a mobile, that'll really help us continue to stay independent and produce various content and videos on electric cars here in Australia. Thanks guys, until next time, stay safe, stay charged and enjoy your EV.